You know, I was looking around, I saw this thing, and my daughter actually pointed it out.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Uncover My Heart, the Heart Healing Journey. My name is Patrice Thomas, and this is our fourth edition. And on tonight, we're going to be talking about the angry heart. How many people's heart are angry on tonight? And when we think about an angry heart on tonight, an angry heart comes to defend us our unbrokenness on tonight. It comes to be that defender. Some of us who are unbroken or have a broken heart, we a lot of times go into the area of being angry. And we become angry because of the things that we haven't experienced in life. And some of the things that we have experienced in life has come to make us strong. They have broken our heart. They have caused us to be sad. They have caused us to be fearful. They have caused us to be hopeless. But yet and still, when we look back on our path, we can see some growth that have come. Situations in life come to make us stronger, come to make us better, come to do a lot of things on tonight. But tonight we want to go into and we want to concentrate on the broken heartness. We want to concentrate on the point of being angry and how angry is the defense mechanism for our hearts being broken. On tonight, my guest is going to be Elise Ford. Welcome on tonight.
Thank you.
I have another guest that's going to be on tonight, and her name is Ebony Cartwright. Hey, sis. Welcome. And my co-host that hosts this with me for the last couple of weeks is Donna Smith. Hey, sis. Welcome. I am so elated to have you ladies aboard with me on tonight as we talk about the angry heart. That is a topic that, wow, that's all I can really say about it. So I just want to go in a little bit. So I read somewhere and it talks about an angry heart. It comes to defend our brokenness, to keep anyone away who might show a potential threat for us. An angry heart stems from unresolved brokenness in our hearts. And ladies, when we think about unresolved brokenness in our heart, what do we think about when we think about angry? Have any of you really been angry in your heart for many situations? And we can start out anywhere we go. We can start out with Lisa, we can start out with Ebony. But what we want to do is we want to just talk about being angry in your heart. What does it feel like, the anger that you have in your heart? And where does it stem from? Any one of you ladies can choose to go first.
Well,
Wow.
I'll go.
Okay. Optimist. So
Can you hear me okay?
anyone that wants to go, where does the anger stem from?
And like you mentioned, Pat, anger stems from so many things that have happened in our lives. We've been abandoned and lied to. People have turned their backs on us, and we've experienced some teasing growing up that would make us angry. We had things taken away from us, like loved ones or different relationships that we wanted to have, and they dissolved. We've been cheated on. I mean, we've been stolen from. The list, it can just go on and on and on. But the angry heart comes in, like you mentioned, to protect us from being hurt anymore in the future. And so we all of a sudden become angry about everything. And sometimes people can be angry. People experience anger every day because it's a simple human emotions. I mean, a child gets angry because they have a toy taken away, or you might get angry because your favorite team loses the game, or someone cuts in front of you at the line. That's a human emotion. It's anger. But those moments, those type of moments, they pass away from us very quickly. But an angry heart is something that's not put away from us very quickly. It stays with us, it sticks with us, and it becomes a part of who we are.
Awesome. One good thing I like that you said, it's an emotion.
Mhm.
And we know people who are we ourselves, we have various emotions from minute to minute. I can say that before this broadcast came on, I had one emotion. I'm like, I can't hear. There's no sound. And then you go from emotion to emotion. So I didn't know whether or not I should become angry, or I should just say, okay, hold on. But anger can happen in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
So, Lisa, do you remember a time when you were angry? How did you feel?
Just the other day, I have to agree with Ebony. I think that anger, also to add to that, anger comes a lot of times from not having a clear understanding of something, or not accepting issues and situations, or maybe even not being unforgiving. It was interesting that you said that, because the other day my husband had said something to me. He was getting ready to say something, and I immediately got angry because of the past, some things that has happened in the past. So when you start bringing things back to fruition as to where something happens, you immediately come to that defense. And I immediately got angry with him, and he said, well, you're getting angry. I didn't even say anything to you. You don't even know what I was saying. So sometimes we get presumptuous and we presume things, and we're not clear, or we don't get a clear understanding of things, and that can cause you to be angry. But once you get a clear understanding of things, the Bible said, "In all I get an understanding." So I think if we get a clear understanding, sometimes we will find ourselves not becoming as angry as we have been, or as often.
Awesome. So did Donna leave us right quick? Oh my goodness. Should we have an emotion about that right about now? So when we think about it and we begin to look at our past a little bit, some things in our past, there's something good that you said, Lisa. You were getting ready to get angry at him because you thought that he was going to say something. And what it did, it touched something that has happened before.
Absolutely.
And what happens is you immediately went to that something before.
Absolutely.
And you probably tuned him totally, completely out, because your mindset was on that thing before it happened. And you already had in your mind what you was going to say, how your emotions going to do, because that's what we do. We allow our past to really hinder us sometimes for what our present can be, or what our future can be. Hey, sis, you came back to us. So we, for a minute, I'm not sure if you heard what Lisa was talking about when she was saying she was getting ready to get angry with her husband because something was good. They were having conversation. And okay, so did you want to jump in and say anything before we go to the next question, or did you want to just throw out the next question?
No, you could go ahead. What I was thinking about is that a lot of times we harbor on old feelings and emotions, and because we sit on them, it turns into anger. It might have been sadness, it might have been something else, but it turns into anger the more that it sits. It's kind of like that piece of fruit that we let sit and it turns rotten. That's kind of like, to me, the picture I get of what happens to our hearts when we get angry.
Mhm.
I like that rotten word. When we let something sit and it begins to fester on the inside of us, it becomes rotten. And what do we do with things that becomes rotten?
You should throw it out.
We
And when
suppose.
because it stinketh? No. And when we don't throw it out, what happens?
Worms, bugs, sick.
Okay. So, ladies, what we want tonight for you to begin to tell us about a time that you experienced having an angry heart, and where did it stem from?
Well, I can say I remember when I was younger, and it just goes to show how deep anger can be, and when you're not in the presence of it, sometimes it seems like it dissipates, but it doesn't actually do that. I had a childhood friend that did something to me that really hurt me, and it just seemed like I had never gotten over it. And I can remember some years later, I think I was like maybe in my 30s, probably my 40s, and I hadn't seen this person in a long time. And so therefore, out of mind, out of sight type of situation. But when I saw that person, immediately the anger in my heart came back up. And it didn't matter what they did or what they said, we just kind of brushed it along. And I don't even think at the time, I don't even think they even knew that I had those feelings toward them. And I knew at that point that I really needed to get it together. I needed to search within myself. And we find ourselves angry at people sometimes, or situations, and especially with people, and they don't even know why you're angry with them. They have no clue at all, but we're harboring this within ourselves. So I think transparency kind of help a lot in that situation, where if we're transparent and we communicate, we have this lack of communication that goes on within us, which harbors anger and frustrations and unforgiveness. And you can't really move forward at that point. You can get by a little bit, but you're not going to move forward, because it's going to always be there. And that situation is always going to be present until you handle it.
Awesome. So, Ebony, do you think you can be effective as being a child of God with anger in your heart? Since we can't hear you, take yourself off.
I said that's a loaded question.
No.
There are times when we are able to do certain things because we've learned how to do them, and we have perfected that, those things that we do. But if we have, if I'm going to say that if we have God's love in us, there should be some conviction that takes place to let us know that, hey, there are some things that you still need to get right. There's some things that are still in your heart that you need to get right in order to be effective, in order to really do the work that I've called you to do. Again, we know church, we've been going all this time. And so we know how to behave. We know the right things to say, and people will receive that. So that, and it will seem as though we are being effective. But again, if we have God's love and his some convictions to come upon us to let us know that there are some things that we need healing from, and that we need to get right with him. And so where we think we're being effective, in our hearts, we know good and darn well we're not really being effective.
Wow. You said some loaded things. Donna, you want to jump in for a moment? I got some loaded stuff from there.
It's crazy because what I was thinking about is, the Bible tells us to be angry and sin not, and let not the sun go down on your wrath, right? But a lot of times when we get angry, we throw all that out the window. We don't think about any of that.
Not at
So as
all.
Ebony was speaking, it's like that part of going to your brother or sister when you're angry or you're upset and actually speaking to them and talking it out, and trying to get to the bottom of it. We don't think about any of that. And especially, and the closer the person gets, if this person is somebody that you're in a relationship with, you easy can roll over and I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to see your face, or I'm gonna go downstairs and sleep on the couch kind of situation because I'm not going to deal with it. But we have to, at some point, face the other person and be able to let them out. Like Alyssa was saying, sometimes they don't even know. So until we say to them, listen, this is how I'm feeling. You hurt my feelings, or you made me angry, or you disappointed me, or whatever it was, we can't even get it out so that we can go on and ask God for forgiveness because we're harboring so much against the other person.
Now, Donna, you said something. You said that we should be able to go and talk to people that, we have ought against or something like that. But that's something that we call crucial conversations.
Yes.
And I've been learning that a lot of people are not ready to have those kinds of conversations. And so that's where discernment comes in, to know exactly when is a good time to have these kind of conversations with that particular person, and then what to say in that conversation so that it will, one, be received, and then two, God's will be achieved throughout that conversation. So we can't just be like, I'm gonna just go to him because I got art in this and this, that. You know how we do. I'm gonna settle this right now. We're gonna take care of all of this. But it's not always the right time. All things, it's lawful, but it's not always expedient. And we have to pray and ask God for discernment to know when is a good time to have those kind of conversations.
Yeah, I agree. You have to really take a breath. Like the young kids say, wait a beat. Before you approach somebody, because like you said, if it comes out wrong, then you just throwing a bonfire into the midst of the whole situation. So you do want to make sure that you think first.
I usually use the motto that you should, instead of react, you should respond. When you react, normally it's in defense, but when you respond, you had an opportunity to step back, think about it. Now you can come forth and give the appropriate response to the best of your ability. Some people are just not going to accept you because they just don't want to. However, you don't have any control over that. I don't have control over how you feel, but I have control over what I do. And so I think if we, a lot of times we react to to a situation, as opposed to stepping back and responding at the appropriate time, just as you said, Ebony.
Right.
And it's funny too, because sometimes if you do that, it's not even the other person. It's you.
Yeah.
I'm going to give them a piece of my mind.
Yes.
You got to get that release out. I don't know about you, but you got to get that release out there. I have a question, though. We talked about discernment. So do you think people use discernment as an excuse for us not to go to our sister and brother? You see, God didn't tell me yet to go to you, Ebony, to say anything. And I know there's an issue there, but I'm waiting on God. I done been on consecration. I done been at the altar praying, and God ain't say for me to come to you yet, sis, to have this conversation. So I'm just going to go on with Jesus, because I'm saved from the top of my head to the bottom of my toenail. But God ain't speak to me to come for me to tell you. So do you think we use discernment as an excuse?
That question's for me.
Discernment.
Yes, I'm going to say some people do use discernment as an excuse. However, within your heart that it's time for you to go and have a conversation with that particular person. But we just, to make it sound good to everyone else, we'll say, oh, God ain't say nothing to me yet. But all in all, it's fear. It's you're fearful because you don't want to deal with the emotions that may be associated with having a conversation with that particular person. And so we cover up fear by saying, oh, God didn't tell me yet. So yes, we do use discernment as an excuse.
Or we use it to not see ourselves.
Absolutely. Yes, that's number one.
I think a lot of times when we go towards people and we have something that we have to say, or as we say, we have to get it off of our chest, we want to dish it out, but we don't want to take it back.
Yeah.
So we're in fear of, well, how about you? And then when you have to turn that spotlight on yourself, it doesn't seem to be as pretty. And we're not as quote unquote as holy as we are putting on to be, because yes, we have some issues as well, but we want to put on as we don't. So that discernment again becomes that hiding place where we can be, a little bit more pious, or as the Bible say, think more of ourselves than we ought to think.
So why do you think healing is not an easy thing for Christians? Why do you think it's very hard for Christians to come back to their brother or their sister and say, hey, I have a problem? It's hard for us to leave our gifting at the altar and really go back and mend that relationship with our brothers and sisters. Why do you think it's so difficult in the church, especially since we have the love of God on the inside of us, and we're trying to have characteristics of Christ. We're trying to follow Christ. But why do you think it's so easy for us to be able to jump and shout and just have a glorious time in church on Sunday when we know that we offended someone? We know that we're angry in the heart. They can't even come into church without us saying, look at them, they look cute. They just walked in the door. How why do you say they look cute? As a matter of fact, they didn't even take off their coat or their hat yet. So why do you think that is so easy? But yet and still, we are the ones that have the biggest testimony, the longest shout. But yet it's still, there's an art that we have going on. There's not sisterly and brotherly love, genuine.
And that's the reason, because we have the biggest shout. We have the longest testimony. We got it all together. How am I wrong? Why do I have to come to you? I'm the one that got it together. You're the little man on the totem pole, not me. I've been in church all my life. I was raised in this church. Okay, don't you know who I am? When I come in, even the angel bow down. That's the way we feel. When we get to that point, we're too high. We can't feel that. So that's that pride. That's that pride that grabs hold of us and stop us from being real and being true to who we are. And we can't accept. And guess what? We're not going to prosper that way. Again, you may get away with a few things, or you may get over because, gifts and callings are out without repentance. So sure, you have a gift, but how are you effective? Is your witness really is it really effective at that point? And I that's a question that each one of us individually have to ask. Are we just putting on a facade, or we just putting on a front, or do we really want to be real for Christ?
That's true. And I think a lot of times, Edward, you going to say something?
I was, but go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, the first part of your question was, why do we find it so difficult to heal those kind of relationships? And Lisa said something about that earlier when she said that it's difficult because we have to deal with who we are first. We have to deal with the things that we done first. And then, and that takes a lot of self-reflection. And a lot of people don't do that, or are afraid to really see who they are. Again, we've practiced church. We know how to behave in front of people. But when we're alone and God starts dealing with us, with who we are and the things that we've done, we find it difficult. And so before healing can begin with other people or relationships, we have to deal with who we are first. We have to be healed first.
Okay, that's great. So someone said in the comment section, this is what keeps our young people out of the congregation. And I guess they're saying that it keeps them out of the congregation because we're not being real. What we're displaying in front of them is that we can be wrong and still function wrongly in the church. So it goes back to something that we learn how to perfect our craft, and our craft is church. So, so that's a reason why they're saying that's a reason why a lot of young people don't want to stay in church, is because of they see a lot of different things. And when they get to a certain age, it pushes them out of church. So what do you ladies have to think about that? So most of us on this line, if not all of us, have grown up in the church. And when we have grown up in the church, we see a lot of different things. Is there something that may have hurt you and then allowed you to become angry and want to leave?
I know as a young person, I got pregnant young. And when I got pregnant, I was taken through so much in the church. And it did make me want to leave. And it made me very, very angry with individuals, but I guess just with the church in and of itself, because, the Bible tells us to come as you are. It tells us to come, bring your burdens to the Lord, and he'll bear them for you. But you can't, because you can't even get past the folks who are too busy judging your situation. So I know for a long time, I was extremely angry with the church. And I understand how young people can feel sometimes. But I think that when Ebony and Alyssa were just talking, it takes me back to the mirror challenge, where you have to look at yourself in the mirror. And before anyone can judge or point a finger at anyone else's anger or attitude or behavior, you have to look yourself in the mirror. So even if you were in a situation with somebody, thinking about what we were saying to ourselves as we looked in the mirror, what the second thing said, I am in charge of my emotions. And when you think about that and you look and you look at yourself, there's no way in the world you could keep up that facade, that attitude, and at some point not see yourself, not see those little horns sticking up like something's wrong, something's not right here. And I know for myself, I get emotional in terms of crying, whether it's what somebody else did to me and how I can get to them to let them know that I'm feeling this way, or whether it's what I might have done to someone else. But I think we have to be very cognizant of the fact that not only do we have to watch ourselves, but people are watching us and how we respond and react. And particularly as Christians, if you're carrying a grudge, because that's what it is at the end of the day, against somebody else for any of the reasons that we've been discussing and talking about, then why would a young person want to come to your church? Because I know what you're carrying with you and how you're feeling. So how can I possibly go in there? So it's a lot of little things that people have to let go of, and I guess try to think about, not just from their perspective, but also from the people that are around us, seeing things go on.
That's good. One of the things that I often say a lot of times as older saints in the church, or as older people in the church, we have a tendency to look at young people and to be judgmental. And sometimes judgmental can be because we don't understand. And the problem with not understanding what a next age group or an age category, is going through, it can be detrimental to that person or to those young people, because we have to realize that even in our dispensation of timing, there are some things that the generation before us thought that should not be done. And it goes on and it goes on and goes on, but it's a lack of understanding. And I think a lot of times we run people away because there's a lack of understanding, or to be honest, they're actually doing something that way deep down inside of you that you really want to do. Mm-hmm. So because you can't do it, what you do is become critical of the one who can do it. It's the same way when you look at younger males and females. you are on them because of their outward appearance, but way deep down inside of you, you probably want to look the way they do or to dress the way that they dress, but you can't do it. So you criticize what they are doing instead of then maybe looking back for a moment and saying, if I think something's wrong with what they have on, or if I think something's wrong in what they say, maybe I should go to them and have a conversation. Maybe I should build a relationship with them to find out why is it that they do or say what it is that they're doing. One thing about the mirror challenge that seems that people seem to miss it, to thy own self, you have to be true.
Mm-hmm.
Because we can look in a mirror all the time, but if you're not true to yourself, all you're doing is looking at to make sure that your clothes are neat, to make sure that your outer appearance is good, but you're not dealing with the inner man. And a lot of times we do that. We always say, I know who I am, but knowing who you are really consists of a lot of different things. Do you know your attitude? Do you know your disposition? Do you know when you have gone too far? Do you know your likes and your dislikes? Do you know when you talk too much?
Mm-hmm.
All that, it comes in the realm of knowing yourself. Do you know what's in your mind, even though you don't speak it, but you still thought it? That's still no. Why do I feel that way? Why did I say the things that I do? So sometimes we got to check us.
But I also think that on that same vein, especially when we're talking about young people, that we have to know how we did the work so that we could also teach them how to do the work, how to examine themselves. Like a lot of times we say, we shout out all these things, but young people don't know. Or new saints don't know. So I even like, how do you they said this, but how do you do that? And so really sitting down and having conversations and being okay with whatever is said at the table, and coming up with different mechanisms to have these conversations, and not just with children. I'm going to say that, as women, as adults, as we talk about relationships and things like that, a lot of women don't know how to go about having a relationship, let alone mending a relationship. And I'm saying women because we're all women, but anybody. So until you learn that thing, it's hard to fix that thing. So we got to start working on ourselves, but we got to do that work with each other too, to help point out some things.
Somebody just said all church folk. No, they said some church folk are mean. I just think people in general are mean. And a lot of times people are, I'm sorry, a lot of times people are mean. It's because they have something on the inside of them that they're not dealing with. Meanness a lot of times is a stem of being hurt, being angry, being broken on the inside. So a lot of times people are mean because you're not dealing with you. You're not dealing with your anger. You're not dealing with your brokenness. You're not dealing with your hurtness. You're kicking it under the carpet and you're just functioning, instead than the story that often comes to me is the story of Mary and Martha. And I use this quite a bit. And Martha was so upset because Mary would not come back in when Jesus came to visit them. Mary would not come back in the kitchen and assist her with getting all the food together because they had company in the house. So Martha went to Jesus and she began to say, Jesus, don't you see what Mary's doing? Don't you see that Mary's not helping me out? Here we are trying to be courteous to you and get this meal for you. But yet and still Mary wants to sit in here and listen to what you have to say. And when Jesus came back and said that, Martha, 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 you seem to be upset over the little thing. Mary desires the greatest thing. And the greatest things was to sit at the feet of Jesus. A lot of times we are Marthas, we complain, but the overall of Martha, there was something on the inside. Martha had a jealousy to a certain degree because she could not do what Mary was doing. So now she became angry. She became angry in her heart at Mary because she desired that. A lot of times we become angry in our heart in things that we're doing because we desire what the next person has done. But we don't know what it took for that person to be able to do what it is they do. We don't know the trials and the tribulations that they went through in order to get where they are. So we become angry. And when we become angry, we become jealous. we do become mean. And then we become broken too, because our relationship with Christ now is broken. Anybody else want to jump in?
I know a comment just popped up that says some people are mean to keep people at a distance because they've been hurt and they don't want to be vulnerable to it happening again. So I keep being mean. You want to stay over there and I don't ever have to deal with it. So I thought that was a good comment.
One thing I've learned is that an old mother told me this a long time ago, and I never forgot it. She said, wear this life as a loose garment. You can't get so engrossed and engulfed in everything. You don't know what the next person is going through. So you can't take everything personal. You have to you don't understand. And again, that causes anger because we don't understand. You don't understand what that person has gone through. You don't know. And sure, they may not be, they shouldn't be taking it out on you, but they're not really, in their mind, they're really not taking it out on you. They're just taking out their frustrations on anyone. So we have people who I can speak to them. I see them in the morning and they speak to me, hug me and kiss me. And I see them maybe an hour later and they turn their nose up. I don't know what happened within that hour, but you know what? I keep right on going. I keep on having a smile. It's not what others do to you that you're going to be judged by. It's going to be what you do to them. So being mean is not an option at all on the table. Whether just because someone is being mean to you, don't mean you be mean to them back, and don't mean you should be mean so that you don't get hurt, because that's why Christ died. He died to cover you with all of that. But if nobody, and it goes to just show that you care, because if I don't care about you, you can't hurt me. That's just evident. I don't even give you that much, but I am not going to allow someone anymore, because I've done it, but I'm not going to give anyone that much power over my life that you're going to make me be mean and be out of character because of a hurt. I'll leave you alone, but I'm still going to love you.
Right.
That was good. You leave them alone, but you still can love them. And I feel the same way. I no longer do I allow anyone even to get me remotely angry with you or broken over you. I've learned how to step back and take a different pathway, or to step back and think for a moment, okay, let me chill or something like that, because I think people have a tendency to take you to a place that you don't want to go.
That's why God tells us to pray without ceasing, because you never know when somebody's going to do something. And that's something that might have happened at the beginning of that hour, like Alyssa was just saying, and you could brush it off and let it go. And then it happened an hour later and you about ready to jump on their head. You don't know what might have happened in between there. But if you stay praying or singing a joyful song in your heart, you can walk away and that stuff can just kind of brush past you. If you stay with God on your heart.
Okay, I have another question, ladies, and it came up. Vulnerability. So why do you think vulnerability is something that we don't want in church? We don't want to do. We don't want to show our vulnerable side in church. Why?
One of the reasons.
Oh, she just popped on up.
One of the reasons why we don't want to be vulnerable is because we don't want people to take advantage of us. And we don't want people to take advantage of us. We don't want to put ourselves in positions where we can be hurt or hurt again. And so we don't want to be vulnerable. We always want to show our strong side so people, will know, well, let me not mess with her or mess with him because, they're not weak or they're not vulnerable. So that's one of the reasons why I think, I believe we don't want to be vulnerable in church.
So what's
vulnerable shows?
What's the downside with that?
The downside of being vulnerable?
Not showing vulnerability.
It's because people won't be able to see what God has done in your life. They won't be able to see how he changed you. They won't be able to see the growth and the path that you've taken to get you where you are today. So being vulnerable lets people see, and it lets them see the Christ in you and how he worked things out in you. And that's what we should all strive to do, because our lives we are a living testimony of what God can do. And so in order to be that living testimony, we have to let some guards down, and we have to let people in. We have to let people see the mistakes that we made, or the mistakes we are currently making, in order for them to see that whatever it is that they're going through in their lives, it is possible for them to be healed from it. It's delivered from it, freed from it, whatever, however you want to explain it, is for them to see that it can be done in their lives as well.
Mm-hmm. Or
And so
even
we
to
do.
get help, because a person told me too that, a closed mouth doesn't get fed. So if you don't actually let people know what you need, whether it's in prayer, whether it's literal, you could need food, but if nobody knows that you don't have any food, how do we know to give it to you? How do we know what to pray for? That's one of the things that I love about these conversations that we have, because it really, I know for me, is letting me know what's in my heart. So I know what to pray for, and I can let my brothers and sisters in Christ know what to pray for me too, so that we can grow. Like Ebony said, that we can't grow and get better from one another, and we can't show anybody else the lessons that we've learned.
Awesome. Lisa, you want to jump in?
I'm just listening to everything, and I just think that we have to be transparent, and we have to be true. Our lives and our experiences are to help others, and not to keep it in. So when you're talking about being vulnerable, I have to go back to, that's a spiritual warfare and not really an outward, because when you're in the church and you begin to express some of the things, and these things are faith builders. This helps you build your faith as you grow in grace and you grow in Christ. And so the enemy hears what you're saying, and so now he's going to try you and to see exactly where you are, and try to put you in a position where you're going to be compromising. But we must be steadfast and unmovable, and we must understand that what God is doing in us. And again, we don't have that understanding. We don't have a clear understanding. And then we don't accept some of the things that God allow us to go through, but we don't realize that he's allowing us to go through it to make us stronger and to make us wiser and to increase our faith. If I've never had an issue, Andre Crouch says, if I've never had a problem, I wouldn't know that he would solve them. Yes. I wouldn't know what faith in God would do. So these are the things that, although we call it vulnerability, I like to look at it as just spiritual warfare. And that the enemy is that the enemy is trying to make me renege on what I said that God can do.
That's good. So, ladies, just for a moment. So you have someone that's coming to you and they're angry in their heart, and they've tried so hard not to be angry, but the cares of life has gotten them down. There's someone who's come through a rough childhood, a rough adulthood, or whatever. But at this point, they're angry and they're coming to the church. Broken relationship, husband left them, have babies you can't feed. Whatever the worst situation in your mind that you could come with, they're coming there and they're looking to be healed. They're looking to release some of the anger. What would you say to them? We know that God is able to do it, and we know that they need to pray and fast, but they don't understand all that. How would you relate to them?
You can go ahead, Elisa.
So I think one of the things I have experienced growing up, and now that I'm in the position that I am in my church, we have a tendency to put on a facade that none of this has ever happened to us. We have never gone through any of it. This is like taboo. This is the worst thing, and you're different because it has happened to you. So we put on this really self-righteous outfit or outlook, and even with the children, we don't. When someone, I was going to say this a little earlier, but our children don't want to be bothered with us because we act like we never sinned and we never did anything wrong. We're so perfect and they're so wrong. But when people are broken and they come into your church, they don't want to hear God said this, that, and the other. They want to know that someone else has gone through it, someone else can identify with it, and someone can help me get out of it. And here is an example. And of course, and that's why I believe God allows us to go through some things. I mean, a really quick example. I had I hope, Pat, I hope you don't mind me talking about this.
What you about to say?
No. I am a cancer survivor.
Okay.
And from day one, I said, God, I know this cancer was not for me. I just knew it, but I had to go through it. So when she came to me, I was able to talk to her and say, I understand exactly where you are. I had to go through it. This is how I got through it. And I pray that it helped her to get to the point where I know God's got it. So a lot of times we go through things so that we can help others. But then once we go through it and someone else comes up, we act like, that's the worst thing in the world. And that's the worst thing you can do when you have broken people come in your church. I don't understand. God will provide when I'm hungry and I have nothing right now. I need you to provide it for me. And, I know he will, but how that means nothing to me. I need you to give me some food. Don't tell me, okay, yeah, I know he will do it and walk away. I need you to help me in that case and build my strength and help me to get to that point.
That's good. Someone just said you must allow God to lead you to lead you to whom you can be vulnerable with. You cannot be vulnerable with everyone. You have to use wisdom. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
That you have to use wisdom. I think we have to use wisdom in everything that we do as far as Christ is concerned. But I also believe that everyone cannot meet your need. Everyone's not called to the same thing that you're called to. And I think sometimes we get that twisted with wisdom. That's just not your calling. You're just not abiding in the arena that you're supposed to be abiding in. It's just like you traveling down a one-ended street and you're going the wrong way. That's not for you. So I think a lot of times we think that problems in the church is universal and everyone can solve problems in the church. That's not necessarily the truth, because we can all have the same ministry as far as being evangelist is concerned, but we're all called to different people. And I think when we learn how to abide in our lanes, then the whole point of you being vulnerable to someone would be okay, because the people that comes to you are people that you're supposed to minister effectively. And I think for the most part, when you become mature in Christ and you know what your calling is, a lot of times you know the people that you're called to and you know how to minister to them effectively. But I wanted to go back to what Lisa was saying. That was an angry time in my life when I had cancer. So I'm sure everybody gonna blow me up after this, but it's I really don't care. So that was an angry time in my life when I had cancer. I was very angry, and I was angry because I didn't understand why. I didn't understand out of all the people, and I'm not saying that I was better than anyone, but what I am saying that I didn't know why. And everyone associates cancer with death. Well, let me go back to say let me speak personal pronoun. I had that time associated cancer with death. And I'm like, I'm a little too young to be dying. I thought God had a reason for me. So when you get a diagnosis of that, and yes, God is a healer. Yes, God can do it. Yes, 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 yes. I believe in God. No, I didn't backslide and say I didn't believe in God. None of that was what it was. But when you go through something devastating like that, you begin to question. So because I began to question, I got angry. And because I got angry, other things at that particular time, I didn't want to hear. I didn't want you to come to me and tell me that God was a healer. I didn't need that at that particular time. I understood that he was a healer. I understood it wasn't the first time that I had been sick. I had been sick before, then God had healed. But this time, it was a diagnosis that was prevalent to deal with death. Everybody who had got this diagnosis, they're at stage 3, they're at stage 4, they end up, they get, a mastectomy, they get all these things. And I'm like, okay, God, this is about to happen to me. I'm like, okay, wow, how am I going to feel like that? And most of cancer, the journey of cancer, is one that's mental. It's one that you have to deal with the point of declaring that you're going to live, declaring that you're going to do something. So if you're messed up mentally, you're going to be messed up through your entire journey. And I believe it's the enemy's job to mess you up mentally, because if he gets your mind focused on the condition and not on who God is, he got you. And at that point, it wasn't that I didn't want to know that God was a healer, but I needed someone to be able to come and speak to Patrice, speak to the inner part of me. And I didn't want to hear what was being sent my way. I needed someone who could be able to identify with what I was going on. So if I say that I was hurting after I came from a radiation treatment, I didn't want somebody to say, you just don't believe God, that's why you hurt. No. Let's back up a little bit. I'm hurting because I was just burnt, So those kind of things, I think sometimes we go to the far left. I had people to tell me, you just don't have faith. Okay, all right. You're not necessarily the person I need to talk to right now, but nevertheless, thank you for your commentary. But I think a lot of times we don't know what to say out of our mouth. So because you don't know what to say out of your mouth when someone is hurting or when someone is broken, what you just shift them to was the anger zone. Because now they feel as though there's no one there that they're able to talk to. So
I think that because you were going through cancer and Alyssa was able to reach out to you because she knew you, right? But when we get new members or young people that are coming into the church, if we haven't talked to one another in a church body to know, what, let me take you to Sister Pat, because that has not been my journey, but Sister Pat can help you. But if somebody comes in and they are a young 17, 18, 20-year-old with a baby and they don't have any food in their house, I could speak to how God moved and had somebody come and put their paycheck in my hand and tell me I can't take it back. And God told me to give it to you to feed you. I could speak to that if you just have faith and stand there, that the lady who was across the street who didn't even speak English would put groceries on my doorstep. But you got to know who to tell them to go to. So we have to learn to be vulnerable to one another within an institution so that we can work together to send brothers and sisters that come in to the right people, because we will turn somebody off when they don't know. Because we can't necessarily speak to that. I can talk to people about having had COVID and the brain fog and the after symptoms because I was there. I can speak to them about that recovery process. But we have to be able to, and with wisdom, Rosalind Baker said, you have to guard your heart, but still show the love of God. So you got to also think to yourself, who are those people that God may lay them on your heart, but if God lays them on somebody else's heart, this is my sister in Christ, or this is my brother in Christ, and I trust them, and they have the love, and I'm going to walk with you through this with that person so that you can not be angry and that your heart doesn't get hard, because when it does, it takes a long time. It took a long time for me to come back and say, God, I'm turning my life back into your hands and you got it, because I was so hurt by the church. But yet I knew this was what saved my life when I was in that hospital. So we got to be able to figure out how we can, yes, guard our hearts, but still be a little vulnerable to each other so that they know a little piece of us, so that we can say, we got somebody for this, we got somebody for that, for that, for that, and we can point somebody in the right direction.
I like that. I like that. Anyone else?
I just want to say we somebody's gonna say, oh, she's trying to get super spiritual, but Christ has been hurt so much
Yes.
out of the church, and we think that we don't have to do nothing. We don't have to go through anything. And when you think about what he went through for us, for to be an example for us, then no, I don't want to be hurt. But when it does, count it all joy. Just count it all joy. That's what you have to do. Count it all joy. I turn things sometimes into when people make a point or make a conscious effort to come at me and to do something to me, I turned it into, wow, they're really thinking about me. I really mean that much to them, that they are really plotting. Now, this is my time to really put my Christ-like face on and not even let you know what's going on. So sometimes I have to say in my mind, okay, at least they're thinking about you. They got your attention. You're doing something that grabbed their attention. What is it that you're doing that got their attention? And you know what? The devil should be mad at you, and he should be doing it. So when you look at it that way, you kind of put things in perspective of, okay, they're trying to hurt me because I'm doing something good. Thank you, Jesus.
But you know, that's so true, because that was one of the things that pushed me through my cancer, was that someone who spoke something negative to me my whole entire journey. But you didn't realize that you were giving me the fuel that I needed in order to keep pushing. You were giving me the fuel that I needed in order to do what it is I needed to do to become the survivor. And now I can look you in your face and say, what a mighty God that we serve. Because when I was down, you was just kicking me to stay down. And now that I'm up, I can say, in the midst of it all, you were one that pushed me. You're the one that got me to get to myself and to say, listen, get a hold of yourself, shake yourself loose. This is a season and this is a time, but you will come through this. And when you do come through it, you will have the fuel to give someone else what they need in order to come through their testing, their time, their needs of what it is. You're able to speak life to someone else because of the things that you have went through. So I think a lot of times it's just one thing or one person that can push you into the zone of keep pushing in so they can go through. I thought that was awesome. I know, Ebony, we skipped over you. Did you want to chime in and say anything?
No. No. Everything that everyone is saying is really good. But I don't really have anything else to add to this particular question. But
no problem. So,
okay.
Ladies, before we close, I want us to actually go back to the question. So there's someone that's hurting around you. They're angry.
Mm-hmm.
They're mean. They're broken. Speak life to them. Just look in your camera as if you're looking on the television and just speak a word of life to someone that needs to hear it on the line tonight. Tell them something that they can grab a hold on to let them know that, you know, might be where you are, but this is where you can be. Using a time in your life, you can also.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, everybody don't jump at once.
I mean, I've had these kinds of conversations with people, and what I do at these moments is just really just share, you know, where I've been and the journey that I've had, and just really just let them know that it is possible to no longer be in the place where you are having an angry heart, being so reactive and, being mad just for no reason. You don't really understand why. People being mad at you and you don't even understand why. And the one thing that really helps to overcome these situations is the power of prayer. It worked for me. And because prayer was the thing that allowed me to see who I was, and then the things that I was doing wrong in all of my situations. And so my prayers were at one point, God fix this and fix him or fix her and turn things around and do, but as my prayers became consistent, they began to shift. And when they shifted, it became, God, help me, help me in my situations. I don't want to be wrong anymore. I don't want to be in this place anymore. I need you to heal me. And when the prayers began to shift is when I began to experience the overwhelming love of God. And when I experienced his love, that's when I knew that I no longer needed to be in the place where I was, that I was able to be free from the anger that was in my heart that I wanted to let go of, and I just didn't know how. And then God, he even let me know why I found it difficult to trust him with my heart, to trust God with my heart, and to trust him and the love that he gives unto me, because I have to trust him first in order for him to make that change turn around. And so my conversation or my encouragement is to trust God in these moments, no matter how bad you hurt, no matter how bad situations seem, there will be a time when things turn around. Trust the process, and then to remain prayerful while you're there, even if you have nothing else to say, but to allow the tears to run down your face, because all of the things that you've experienced in your life, let those tears fall. Those tears will eventually turn into words that you can only utter to God, that he will hear, and he will package them. He will put them in such a way where he will be able to lift them up from you, and you will be able to be free. And before you know it, you'll be able to experience the love of God, and then not just experience it, but to extend it to those who have hurt you, and extend it to those who even need to be healed from the same thing that you're going through right now. And so don't be discouraged by what you're going through. Know that God is there. Know that he's there to help you. He wants to heal you. He wants to love on you in such a way so that you'll be able to love like you've never been hurt before. So trust God in this process. And then I'll end by saying, hey, here's my number. Give me a call.
Lisa, you're next.
Really? I gotta come after that.
That was beautiful.
It was. I totally agree with what she had to say. I think a lot of times what I do, because I am an optimist, I try to find the good in every situation. And so one of the things that I may be more inclined to do is to try to have that person look within themselves and see the good and see their value and their worth. I think a lot of times we get into when we are angry because we feel worthless, we feel like we are not at that stage, or we're not at that place where we are worthy of anything, and that we feel like we're the underdog or the low man on the totem pole. But when we begin to look within ourselves and see who we are, and see what our values are, what it makes me unique, what makes that person unique, and to boost their confidence in themselves so that they can now see the big picture of what God want them to be and who they are in Christ. Because we are a peculiar people, we are a royal priesthood, but so many times we don't see that because of all that people are putting, all the hurt that we have, the people that are putting us down. But we can overcome that if we're in the Word of God. But it's so hard to get to that point because we feel like we are just so low. And so I try to encourage them to start reflecting on the positive. And then once I can get them to that point, then I can get them to say, hey, listen, now think about what God is and how he has blessed you in that area, and trust the process. Yes, we've all been through it. We're all going to be hurt. All of us have had some sort of issues that happen, that some circumstances that we didn't like, we didn't agree with, we don't understand. But we do, again, have to trust the process. We have to trust God's process, because what you're going through today is going to help you to get to the next level and help someone else in the long run.
Awesome.
And then I'll give them my number.
Oh, okay. Writing everybody's number on the bathroom wall. Zada, did you want to say anything as we close?
No, I just want to really thank the ladies for sharing tonight. I really got a lot out of it for myself, and I'm sure that everybody else did. Beautifully said. Nice meeting everyone, and thank you so much for sharing everything.
Ladies, I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. One of the things that Ebony said, she said, your tears were turned into words, and that's exactly true, because my tears is where Teardrops Liquid Language of the Heart came from. It's through all the things that I went through in the valley of when I was going through it, and the tears that I cried allowed for this to come into fruition. Teardrops Liquid Language are all we're trying to do is to have a hand to help to pull the people out of the darkness of their past, and to have a mouth that we're able to speak life into people and to push them forward. We want them to become better and assured, and it's through the power of positivity. So once again, I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you for everyone who shared comments and everything. My name is Patrice Thomas. I am the creator of Teardrops. The next Tuesday at 7:30, when we'll be doing part 2 of The Broken Heart. See you then. Bye-bye now.